Good morning. I'm Nick Easley. I'm CEO of 3C Consulting, Multiverse Capital. Some of you look familiar, a lot of new faces. One thing to know, though, that we're going to get into is that half of you won't be here next year, and there's going to be four times more people here, all with the same hopes and dreams. So, learn from what I'm about to share. Keep doing what you're doing, but things are hard. They're only going to get harder. And Cannabis Light, Plan B, what's happening in Germany. Really exciting, kind of sucks though. So it's where are the actual opportunities in Germany, in Europe, and then still globally? Because everything kind of sucks if you've been following the news. If not, welcome to the party. Little disclaimer, I look like a lawyer sometimes, I talk like one, I'm not a lawyer. Make sure to use good lawyers in this space, good CPAs. Without them, you will be screwed. So even with them, you're kind of screwed sometimes. And no matter what, they're gonna win. They always get paid, win or lose. But without good legal interpretation, or tax understanding of how things work between countries, for where you're gonna get the best deductions, you will, even if you have the best business in the world, if you don't plan it correctly or do the tax side correctly legally, you're just screwed. So don't even do business if you think you can do it without good lawyers and tax accountants, unless you're gonna sell lemonade outside your house. And I might be offensive, I do swear, I do make fun of things, but I'm not guessing, this is literally the truth, and when you fight the truth, you lose. So, here we go. Been in the space for 16 years, originally from Wisconsin, was in the military, disabled vet. That's how I actually got into cannabis, went to Colorado 16 years ago. Right place, right time. Medical had just happened. We were the first state that allowed commercial medical production. We were also the first state that allowed commercial recreational adult use 21 and older production. We beat California, we beat Washington, we beat everybody. We were the guinea pigs. So I was right place, right time. And really just saw when it went from caregivers, kind of like your club thing that's gonna happen here, where it's you can grow certain plants for people and kind of sell them but not make money, to oh, you can have a GmbH or an LLC, a corporation that actually makes profit. So been around for a long time, started working in Colorado, other states, other countries. Then by 2015, first German tender here, second German tender, and all over the world. So what we've learned from all these markets is very indicative of what you're gonna see continuing to evolve here. I finished my slides 5 minutes before this, so it's gonna be really fun what happens. What's the current status of the industry? I made the joke the other day, everything's just great, so there's no need to even have a conversation, right? Good job, everybody. Nothing's fucking great. It's actually horrible. It's the worst that it's ever been, ever. So what do we need to do? I kind of made jokes, everything's kind of on fire, even though a lot of people you're talking here are really excited. They're doing awesome business. Some things are doing crushing revenue. Main thing we got to remember though is we are still getting medicine to patients, which is the most important thing. It's been the bedrock of our foundation as an industry. That's why we're here. Everything else is a benefit. The adult use side, hemp, legalized hemp, that only came from legalized medical. We started that in the United States. We didn't even get hemp until 2014 back in the United States. And then it just keeps getting re-clarified and so forth. So right now, if you want to survive this, we have to get to work, bitch, is, if you know the Britney Spears song, you should watch it, it's really good. Okay, so, I mentioned this last year as well, in the United States, we're the 5th largest commodity already, cannabis. It's not even federally illegal in America. So when you think about globally, it's only gonna be a matter of time until cannabis again is the largest agricultural commodity in the world. And I'm not just talking about medical cannabis and recreational cannabis or CBD flowers and so forth. I'm talking about the clothes we wear, the protein sources that make our bodies, how we print ink, how we wipe our asses. And there's 8 billion of us now, there's gonna be 16 billion of us. We can't keep doing cotton, we can't keep doing timber, we can't keep doing the same shit different day and expect different results. This plant used to keep us alive, sail around the world with it, print our money on it, write our constitutions on it. In our case, doesn't really have that much merit anymore, but so no matter what you do, just know this is something that's been illegal for a long time and only actually in a short time of our human history. So we're taking the power back, which is a great thing. Okay, so we think about global medical cannabis, what are we looking at in 2023? Same shit, different day. What's the biggest problem that we have as a medical cannabis industry globally is that doctors are terrified about writing a prescription for something they were told was always a narcotic, or the devil's lettuce, or addictive, or the same as heroin or cocaine. Doctors are not stoked on writing prescriptions for heroin. Maybe in America if it's fentanyl or other drugs, joke, sorry, horrible. But, geez, like, how do we educate doctors? How do we continue to do this? Like, it's gonna be more clinical trials, and it's not gonna happen anytime fast. So like, one of the things you gotta know if you're in medical cannabis, it's not gonna be as fast as you think. You're not gonna go from selling 100 kilos this month to like 20,000 kilos and have your 20,000 hectare farm and be like a fucking dole of cannabis medically. It's just not gonna happen. We had those thoughts in 2015, 16, 17, 18, and then they started to fizzle. And like, now it's just like a reality where I've been a part of a company that went from like 1 employee to 250, and now it's got 10 employees. You know, large farm in Colombia, similar to a lot of producers. You know, we think about like, this is one of the most important things that happened that still no one talks about, and I still am like, this is so critical, y'all. Remember during coronavirus, like we rescheduled cannabis at the UN level with the WHO, the Commission for Narcotic Drugs, like the CND. So like, cannabis is not like Schedule 1 in their opinion anymore. It does have medicinal value, it just needs more evidence. And remember, like most of us are members of like the UN, and it's like, if they agree on something, we're gonna do it kind of like you're supposed to in the European Commission, unless you're Germany or Hungary most of the time, you know, oddly enough. So most countries are not in compliance with UN law anymore, where it's like they're supposed to amend their Controlled Substances Act to match what the UN, what the WHO, what the CND said. A couple countries are in compliance, more and more are happening, but like if we change that, those tax crazy shits about America, like IRC 280E, all those things go away. So just know, like internationally, cannabis is medicine. It's already happened. Most countries are just choosing not to like believe that yet or adopt that, but they will. It's just a matter of time. So when we think globally, like what's happening with like recreational adult use, we've got Uruguay. Where's Uruguay again? You know, I'm just kidding. You know, small little country, first country to have the courage, like the tenacity to like actually legalize and go like this to the world. Canada followed suit. We also have like the Netherlands with the weed experiment. We've got the social clubs that are gonna be happening here-ish, TBD, depending on like how that worked when we get into Plan B. You've got like the medical clubs in Spain, but really, other than Malta, Luxembourg as of 2 days ago with their vote, which we're gonna get into, you know, Canada and Uruguay, they're the only places doing this. And remember, the United States, those blue things, I'm gonna make a lot of parallels between the United States and Europe. And I know that that's not really fun for most Europeans, but it's like, it's the opposite. Remember, like we left here because shit sucked. We went and did some crazy shit, learn from us, take that back this way. It's kind of like the, you know, switcheroo, getting a little retro here. But this is gonna happen. It's just gonna be a matter of time. And I've been saying federally in the United States, it's gonna be 5 to 10 years until we have like legalized cannabis. But I've been saying that for like more than 5 to 10 years now. So even someone who's been around this long, like a dinosaur, fuck, it's not gonna happen as fast as we think. And the people that don't want it to happen, the longer this goes, the more of us bleed, the more they devalue us, the easier it's gonna be for them to acquire us, which is gonna happen eventually. So just know it's like, it's gonna suck. You gotta entrench. It's not gonna be like it's not gonna be like taking over France, you know? It's like, it's gonna take a long time to know France. I'm gonna make fun of France a little bit too. Sorry. Okay, so United States, fucking cowboys, boom, boom, you know? Yesterday someone was really funny, like, you cowboys always come over here, and like, yeah, we are kind of cowboys. Shit is a little crazy, but this is one cowboy that's like still around, and what we've learned in the United States, I'm telling you, is gonna be so indicative of what's happening here, because it's already started. It's like, here, future. You know, oh, here's some future thoughts for you. So in America, just remember, we've got almost 350 million people. We did almost $37 billion US in revenue last year as an industry, and it's federally illegal. Like our whole country, like as it's been like changing, remember Texas has medical now, but each state is its own little country. That's one thing I want you to like remember, even though like we've got cross-border and like one government, and like states do have certain little rights compared, just like countries in the European Union. You got little rights, not really, but kind of. But when you can flex those rights, that's when shit happens. That's when amazing things happen. Like that's when we can undo injustices. That's when we can start new industries and policies. That's when we can actually like illuminate that there was a problem with something that the federal government or the European Commission in this context, like, do you have a joke for like Uncle Sam of like the European Commission or something? I wish you had like some figure we could make fun of, but like our Uncle Sam compared to your Uncle Sam or like Aunt Patty or whoever, you know, she is, it's very similar. So like each state has been like choosing to break federal law and write their own policies. The problem is our government, like our FDA, Food and Drug Administration, or our USDA, like Department of Agriculture, they can't tell states how to regulate this or how to like deal with pesticides or testing or like potency or quality control because it's federally illegal. Still in America, we're Schedule I narcotic, heroin, no medicinal value. Don't study it, don't touch it. You know, the rest of the world's like, hey, it's changing. So, you know, big up to date here, there's only 3 states that still don't have some sort of cannabis law. And there's 50 states. There's 21 now that have adult use legislation. That's almost half. And DC, like in Washington, DC, our capital, which is not a state or district, it's recreationally legal there too. So like as this is happening, just like it's happening here with Germany, with Malta, with Luxembourg, yeah, Czech Republic, the pilot program that's happening in Switzerland, every little country's like, how are we gonna do this? And they're all gonna do it different, and they're all gonna fuck it up in a different way or another. There's gonna be successes in some, failures in other parts. It could go a lot faster if you look at what's been working in the United States, what products work, what concentrations work, what tax rates work. If you overtax this, the illicit market just continues to take market share. If you make it like too cheap, the illicit market's gonna go away. If you give way too many licenses, free market, tons of businesses die. If you only give like 1 or 2 licenses, it's a little different. So just think, like from this map, we started in Colorado as the first green. It's just spreading around. There's more and more initiatives happening, but we're not gonna legalize anytime soon in America either. Even though like there was some like leaked news, like Biden's gonna deschedule it, you know, who knows what's gonna happen politically. So now we're into Europe, your world here. It's been pretty interesting to watch, like having worked over here for now 8 years and seeing like what's happened with the bee farm with medical cannabis. Germany is amazing in how like they've allowed medical cannabis. But then seeing how Portugal came in, how Spain's doing it with their clubs, how the Netherlands with their weed experiment happened, while at the same time having Bedrocan, like one of the like the first highest quality like EU GMP producers ever that didn't scale and like take over the world like we thought, because the Canadians on the other side legalized first, and they thought they would dominate and take over Europe, which obviously didn't happen. But when we think about this little area here, this will be the largest cannabis market in the world. It's based on your population. Also, when we look at like drinking correlations with other things, disposable income levels, like eventually like preferences will change. Things are gonna happen here. It's not been good though. Like one of the big news from yesterday, you know, Canopy that came over that spent like what? Like 90+ million in Spain trying to get their medical license and like all these acquisitions and so forth. Canopy Growth at one point had a $19 billion market cap. Yesterday, it just went under 400 million. And remember, there's a big difference between $1 billion and $1 million. So like when you're like 78% down for the year, and when your stock or your market cap is 2.1% of what it was in 2021, what do you think that's gonna be like for y'all over here? And your public company stocks, and like, this company's going public on like the Tel Aviv exchange, this one on the Frankfurt, this one in London. How's that working for everybody? You know, it's not super great, but when we think about this, just think like, it's America, but not America, but not. You have a lot more rights as countries, you know, than we do as states, but just thinking like Luxembourg, Germany, Czech, I mean, Schengen with the Swiss, like it's happening. We've got sanctioned production happening in the Netherlands through the weed experiment, which I love how in Europe you can, actually it's everywhere. You can say some sort of word and then everything's okay. It's like, it's not the weed like legalization project. It's like, it's the weed experiment. We're not legalizing, we're just an experiment, but we're gonna give licenses and allow people to produce cannabis and sell it to anyone who's 21 or older. Sounds like legalization to me, but it's an experiment. Or like Putin can be like, it's not a war, it's like a military exercise. You know, just, you know, bad joke. So no matter where you are here, think like, as soon as a couple of these countries start to fall and like change their positions, it's gonna be a matter of time until they all do, but not everyone's gonna come on quick. Like you've got Indiana's, like who's the biggest asshole in Europe? Like, I don't actually know. But like there's gonna be like a couple holdouts, and there's gonna be the ones that are slower, and there's gonna be some that don't wanna have production and only wanna do sales. How that's all gonna play out, we don't know. But it will be very, very similar. You can't cross borders. You can do what you want in your own little house. It's gonna be similar to Germany. Why did Curaleaf take like a preemptive position to purchase one of the 3 medical domestic producers in Germany, even though they didn't spend that 20 million euros yet? It was like 19.5. But it's like, hey, if we want to, we can execute this option, because most likely domestic production is gonna be required for when domestic supply happens. Now you're gonna do it with these social club things, like, I got my 3 plants a year, these people can grow 500 for me. 1,500 plants ain't shit. I mean, I can grow like a 10-kilo plant in Colombia or somewhere, but like if you're cycling through a lot of plants, which still that leak law said 3 plants per year. That's not that, I mean, that's not good. Like, unless you grow really, really big plants, most people are, that's not even enough cannabis to smoke in a year. So yeah, what's gonna happen? Plan B program, like, kind of seems like a failure. I think Germany was really excited and got everyone excited. Hey, you get in power when you say you're gonna like do some shit and then you don't have to deliver on it. I guess politicians do that sometimes, just like, it happens. But now, like when the rubber meets the road, like the tires like moving, it's like, how is Germany actually gonna do this? Because that leaked draft doesn't look that good. And there's some things that could change in it, but realistically, there is not much business opportunity for when you read what Plan B is. I mean, you've got the clubs, there's gonna be the real estate for that. The biggest opportunity, which I've mentioned already, is like the home grow. Like who's gonna sell lights, who's gonna sell soil, who's gonna sell fertilizer and nutrients to like everyone who thinks, I'm gonna grow these 3 plants at home and like in my garden, or like where, there's gonna be some like big uptake in like those kind of sides, but like there's really not a commercial viable opportunity right now based on like what we see for the leak draft, which sucks for y'all. I made definitely a joke about this the other day. Plan B is like a birth control pill in America for it's like, the condom breaks or something. That's kind of like what Plan B is to me. It's like, well, we were gonna do something cool, but like it didn't really work out, so let's just do this to like hope for the best. But like realistically, Plan B, for no matter how you read it, I don't see an opportunity other than these clubs. Now, through that opportunity though, those clubs could start to make brands that could get like consumer reputations known. The bummer too, you're gonna be a member of one club. You can't be a member of another club. In Colorado, it was so radical. Like originally our medical, you would go to one dispensary and make them your caregiver for while you were there and assign your 6 plants to them. But then you could go to another store and do the same thing the next day, and we just kept making more plants by like people going to more stores, and we would still be their care provider even though they came in one time 4 years ago. But we still would grow their 6 plants for them. So it's gonna be really weird what happens, but like brands, consumer reputation, the tech softwares like that deal between those like clubs and deal with their compliance, I see some opportunities with those. But realistically for like mass market, like 37, 40 billion revenue, like what we're doing in the US illegally, not gonna happen here as quickly as most people think. So some big changes happened though in the last couple of days. I mean, Luxembourg, baller, voted, they've been talking about it for a while. It's very similar to, what is it, like 4 plants or something like that? One more than you. 1 plant, it really isn't that much either, but still like 1 plant can change the world like this one's about to do. So Luxembourg's got the courage to kind of come forward, even in this last couple of days too. What? This is almost like, my joke with this one is just unfortunate. It's like doing this to like help alleviate like war trauma. I'm like, you're still in the fucking war, like don't get everybody stoned yet. Like, keep fighting. But like, I understand, but this is a beautiful thing. I remember going to Ukraine before the war, really focusing on some like big hemp projects and thinking about like what that country could do and like just seeing the agricultural production, the costs, and then all this bullshit's happened, which is still happening. But then to like come out and say like, hey, we're gonna legalize medical, and if you actually read through what he had said, he's sanctioning and going to allow like domestic medical supply first, which would then allow export if you do it compliantly with law. And if they make it as part of the EU, and win the war, like that could be a really big thing, because what you produce there, 12 hours away by semi, 600 euros to get something here, and it costs, like how much is a hectare of land to lease in Germany? Like what, like 600 euros? It's 20 euros there. That's why like Ukraine is fucking awesome. I think that's why everyone's like likes it so much. The climate and so forth. So when I was talking about your stocks as well, like this was, not that long ago, they're all worse. They're about 30% worse than they were even from when I screenshotted that. So it's like, don't just go public. Don't just think that you can do the same thing that everyone else has done, because it's gonna be very similar to like what's happened with everyone else. I remember that I had one more France joke too. So meanwhile, Luxembourg is gonna allow this. France now allows you to pay your taxes or like your fine instantly, like to bribe like a police officer, AKA. So it's like every country is gonna do something different. Some are gonna legalize, some are gonna decriminalize, some are gonna allow a little production in some clubs. Some, like Malta might actually just do like a large production. Let some of their medicals switch over to the adult use side, which is 100% of the time what happened in America. Every time we had a medical state go to a recreational state or an adult use, the first people who get to like switch over are the current license holders. Why do you think Curaleaf bought that position in Germany? Because it's like 100% of the time on the other side of the pond it happened, probably gonna be the same thing here, where they're gonna give new licenses to like new producers. That's possible too, because you got insurance paying for one. Like there's so much unknown with this. That's where there's the opportunity, which we're about to just dive into in the last couple moments here. So something that I do love about America that I've learned is like real estate. If I had been into real estate 15 years ago, I'd literally be the richest person in cannabis right now. Every single time you have cultivation, manufacturing, retail, delivery, there has to be a property involved. That property typically can't be bank owned, has to be owned outright. You have to have the consent of the owner. Typically has to be zoned something very specific based on whatever that Burgermeister or like local position decided it should be. Typically can't be too close to a church or a daycare or an addiction center or something else. We call this green zone real estate. So as Europe starts to unfold, just like they did in the Netherlands, like with the weed experiment, like where you position those 10 operators, which was a fucking lottery and a joke, but like there was big constraints on real estate. It's the same thing here. Like where are they gonna allow the sales? Maybe it'll be at the pharmacies owned by like all these different families. Maybe it'll be at different places. Where will clubs be allowed? They're not gonna just let them be like next to parks and so forth. Like, you know, this is Germany, things are a little bit more strict than that. So even though you can walk down the street from the beer, or in the future, like after 8 p.m. at night, you can like walk down the sidewalk smoking a joint now, but not after 7 in the morning to 8 at night. So just, you know, set your timers. But real estate will be one of the biggest things that you can actually do. And this will be like over a 5-10 year play, but typically for real estate, we get 3 to 6 times the returns that we do on any normal real estate deal. Like I still get 12 to 18% debt for real estate, just because banks can't finance it. It's gonna be very similar here. Large scale institutions are not gonna be stoked to give big old loans to like cannabis companies or like social clubs. I'm gonna give them a business loan. Like not gonna happen. That's where there's gonna be some big opportunities for investors as well. It's hard to raise money in this space. Like I said, we're federally illegal. No one wants to invest into Pablo Escobar. You know, if you're like the big guy, like we're not Pablo. But it's hard as hell to raise money. So just know that like in these processes, if you're an investor or an operator, you need to start looking for like where my capital is gonna be safe and who's gonna manage it well, or how to actually get real capital. And debt is by far like so much easier than equity, especially when it's asset backed. Everyone's gonna think the same thing. I mention this every single time I talk, because this has been a 10-year thing and I've only been right about it. So I don't see it just like spiking back up. Our bubble's already happened. Your bubble's already happened here in Europe too for stocks. If Germany had come out with a plan A of like a massive, we're gonna give 50 production licenses and 50 manufacturing licenses, and we're gonna give 2,000 retail licenses based on population in all these burgers or like little towns, like that could have been cool. It's not how it happened. So like that bubble is not gonna happen here. Well, whenever these big news, the bubble was from like 2018, it popped so bad in 21, it'll never recover. Like worse than like the tech side. So remember, that was, you know, originally, here's our 5-year plan. You see those original bubbles. Here's our today. And I'm even 3% lower than I was 2 days ago at the GIF, which just is like not a p-value, right? You know, it's got not 5%, but like 3% more in like 3 days. That's shit. So like public is not the way to like raise capital right now. Like you're not gonna take over Europe and like raise this big thing and, oh, you're gonna be like the next Canopy Growth. That's not even cool to say anymore. Because remember, they're only 2.1% the value that they originally were. So like, don't compare yourself, like we're gonna be like them. Like, you want a failure? Probably not a great idea. So if you need money, if you're an operator, if you're an ancillary company, if you're a packaging company, if you're a producer in Portugal, if you're like anything, I guarantee you, well, other than maybe 5-10% of you don't have enough money to survive the next 2 to 3 years. Because it's not gonna be as awesome as you think. So, how are you gonna survive? How are you gonna downsize? How are you gonna get efficient? How are you gonna start to prepare your financial models to get capital? That is huge. It's like, because as soon as you see like the light, like, oh shoot, we only got cash flow for 3 months, you're fucking dead already as a business. I've seen it happen, like thousands of clients, like they come to us desperate, like they'll get merchant cash advance loans, they'll like do personal guarantees, like they'll take out a second mortgage. You're already screwed if you're doing that. Like, so you gotta plan your business farther in the future than you could possibly imagine. Everyone always thinks like, we're gonna build this brand and everyone's gonna know it. And of course it's gonna have Canna in the name or 420 or something stupid as fuck, like Pharma, Can, just come on. Like, so if you're gonna build a brand, just stay away from that. What I've learned in America It's companies that don't have anything to do with cannabis or anything green as part of it that are actually like brands that people like, or that we've had like massive exits on. Like I've built a company from one thing to like 19 locations and sold it to Jay-Z's public company. Its name had nothing to do with cannabis whatsoever. So like those are the ones that are really recognizable, or like, so get a little creative, but like don't just think like it's all about the brand either, because if your product sucks, your brand doesn't matter. No one's gonna rebuy it. Don't spend $1 million on a logo. Like spend your time like on like legal protections, IP, knowing that like litigation is gonna be so big, and the bigger you get, the more bullshit you'll have to deal with. Staff are gonna steal from you. Clients are gonna steal from you. Like there's gonna be more and more lawsuits. People aren't gonna pay you. Like litigation, that's another big thing for like investors right now. Like where to focus, like litigation. There are carcasses and dead companies all over. Like we've been buying things from Canada, importing them into America, not cannabis, but like lights, greenhouse equipment. Same thing, it's like, you know, you've got Clever Leaves, all these other companies in Portugal, other places. Like distressed assets are fucking awesome. Get BD in that. Like get deep into that. That's where there's opportunities, even though it seems weird, but you can cannibalize things that were failures and actually put them towards opportunities. And that's where distressed assets for investors now, so much opportunity in that. And like, what's the wisdom of like, don't do what everyone did in the past. Don't do what like the failures did in America. Don't do anything like they did in Canada whatsoever. I mean, legalizing first is good. Legalized medical is good, but like, that's where the opportunities are. The world's changing hard. Obviously on my Grand Canyon pictures, like we've got heat, pressure, we've got all these shifting changes, new things happening. And if you don't evolve, you're dead already. So like that business plan of yours, like if you, every single person in here who owns a business or works in one, if you ask yourself or your owner, like, what's our 5-year plan? If they don't know it, start looking for another job. If you don't know it, fix your fucking company, start thinking hard in the future, or like you're not gonna have one. Like if you can't see like what's, like it's always like, oh, I gotta survive today. What's gonna happen next week? What's next month? It's like, you gotta take that moment as a leader or an investor, be like, what is this thing gonna be in 5 years? Is it worth anything? Is it not? But it's changing so fast. Most startups, most companies are gonna fail. It's just life. So don't be like everyone else, and don't like fight everyone. It's like your collaborators, everyone that's here, everyone that's at this conference, don't be a dick. Talk to people, get to know them. They're going through the same things as you. They might even have a solution to your problem, and you're like, oh, they're a competitor, and I'm like too cool to talk to them. Like we're in this together. This is a lifelong mission. We only have so much time, because like I've been doing this for a long time, and the things I would have done differently compared to like what we could do differently, like we have now. So like, how are you gonna look at this in the future? Take some of these lessons from like what this was, because realistically, we only have so much time, and time's now. Peace.